You need winners? Let the Sports Advisor show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a former sports reporter and contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. Rick Torino, a 25-year handicapping expert, spent over a decade as a college and pro football editor at a national wire service. Together, they are the Sports Advisors, your number one source for winners.
Week number 3 of the college football season is upon us. Hi, everyone. Al DeMarco here, along with Rick Torino, and we are going to break down our top featured games for this Saturday card. Rick and I have known each other for 30-plus years. I got my start in this industry actually as a sports reporter. I was managing editor of a national sports wire service. Rick was the college and pro football editor for that same service. We've known each other for many, many years. In fact, we were in each other's weddings, best of friends. We talk football all the time. We're inviting you in to a conversation because, bottom line, we bet more games together than probably all of you listening. And we've actually won a few of them along the way. So I have to warn you, though, if you thought that you were going to find the typical hot girl, the ex-jock, and the clown comedian giving you ridiculous 14 parlays, 5-team teasers, and moneyline wagers at minus 285, well, unfortunately, you've come to the wrong place. That's not the type of show that you're going to be watching or listening to. We're basically guys that have made money covering and writing about sports for a living. We're guys who've made money betting on sports for years. And Rick, we're also guys that both lost with Utah against Florida, lost with LSU against Florida State. And what the hell happened to you? I'm surprised that you did not come back with Clemson against Georgia Tech. Did you not have any confidence and faith in Dabo against the Yellow Jackets?
I did not, and it's good to be back with you. It's been a long time, but like you said, we go back many, many years. But I appreciate you inviting me on this show, and hopeful to have a success and make some of our followers some money this year. Clemson, I was a little, I don't know. But Georgia Tech, I don't know how they put that garbage on national TV last night, to tell you the truth, Al, with Georgia Tech. Oh, boy. And then Clemson ends up covering in the end. And the over and under, Al, even was at 50. That went over at 51. So I just not a big fan of Clemson this year. At least the offense, anyway. The defense is going to be good.
Yeah, well, in a lot of places, actually, that game pushed the total at 51, depending on where you push, got the closing price of that one. We, of course, are recording this video for you on Tuesday, so it can be up and available for you. So the prices that we are talking about throughout this video are as of Tuesday night. They may change slightly as we approach Saturday's kickoffs. But still, you should have come with Clemson. I mean, you're absolutely right, though. I mean, what were they thinking? I mean, the TV executives sitting there all those months ago, let's make Clemson and Georgia Tech the featured game because everybody wants to watch Georgia Tech, a team that's won 3 games each of the last 3 seasons because there's nothing better to do on Labor Day. I mean, seriously, that was the best you could come up with? I don't know. Well, listen, this is the format of the show. We agreed on the games that we're going to talk about, and that's it. We've never discussed them. We have no idea who likes what side, and that's how we're going to play it each and every week. So with that being said, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the biggest game on the board, and that's that little game between Alabama and Texas in Austin on Saturday. Rick, I'm going to let you kick it off here. Nick Saban, of course, opened up with a little bit of a browbeating of Utah State. They kind of covered the spread, 55-0, laying 41.5 points, and that was pretty much what the Tide starters, only playing 3 quarters in that one.
Yeah, I just, like you said, getting right to the point. I mean, and let's not forget, too, that there's only been one of his assistants that beat him, and it was old Jimbo last year down in A&Mville. But the 20 scares me a little, but I can't go against the Tide in this game. That place, Austin, will be a raucous, but it's not like anything they haven't seen before, whether it be in Athens, Georgia, whether it be in the Mercedes-Benz for the SEC championship game, Knoxville, Auburn, Starkville. The crowd will not affect them. Personally, not a big fan of Quinn Ewers. I don't know. He didn't play his senior year. He threw 2 passes last year. Looked good Saturday. Well, it was Louisiana Monroe, so we know where we're going there. But I'm afraid of the 20. But I'm gonna lay. If I'm gonna make a pick, and I'm gonna take Alabama laying the 20. It's just I just can't. I think it. Yeah, I think it's not gonna even be close at halftime.
I agree with you. Now, do you think Nick will show any sympathy toward Steve Sarkisian?
No. And that was part of, and I'll go back to Saturday because that was part of some thinking I was hearing on the East Coast with Kirby Smart and Georgia against Dan Lanning and Oregon. And he didn't show any sympathy for his former defensive head coach with the Ducks. So I don't think Saban will show Sark any. And let's be frank. What has Sark done over the years? I mean, we got him at Washington. He did nothing there. Did nothing at USC. So I am. He doesn't win this year. He could. He might be gone. They might be looking again. It's not good if he doesn't win. And I did hear some from today that Saturday's game is not going to determine their season. He's got one goal, and that is to get to Dallas for the Big 12 championship in early December.
I'm telling you right now, Sark just took you off his Christmas card list. You are not. Matter of fact, I just
if I can throw one note in, I will really be curious to see how Bijan Robinson does for the Longhorns. Really like him, one of the top running backs in the country, but he gets a test against that Alabama defense, which is better than last year. So.
Well, listen, I am 100% in agreement with you. I often say that marquee games are not necessarily the ones that you want to bet on because often they are the ones that you want to watch because there's no line value in them because they are overanalyzed, they are overhyped, and the value just evaporates. But in this particular case, I mean, Alabama is head and shoulders above Texas. I don't even get this line. I mean, did anybody realize, as you said, Texas starting quarterback, first game played, beating up UL Monroe? On the other side, you've got, an Alabama team that is a veteran team. You've got Bryce Young. He was playing the Little Sisters of the Poor last week. But hold it. Utah State did win the Mountain West Championship last year. This is not like chopped liver. The Aggies were a good team, an 11-win team that beat Oregon State in the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl. Bryce Young, 6 touchdowns, 18 for 28, 5 passing touchdowns, 5 carries for 100 yards and 1 touchdown. And he did that all in 3 quarters before Saban called the dogs off in that game. And the other thing with Alabama, they went out and they reloaded. One of the key guys they got through the transfer portal was Jamar Gibbs from Georgia Tech. 9 carries, 93 yards. This is a guy who on a bad Georgia Tech team last year averaged 5.2 yards a carry, 746 yards. This Texas defense was pathetic last year. They couldn't stop anybody. They are not going to stop Bryce Young. They are not going to stop Gibbs in that Tide running attack. And, everybody in Texas likes to say, hey, the Horns are back. UT is back. Well, they're not going to roll in the Tide's neighborhood. Alabama's going to be relentless, and I can see Alabama winning this game by 28, 31, 34 points. And I'm with you. I don't think it's even going to be close. So roll Tide, roll. Off we go.
Al, totally on board with you, obviously. And I just can't forget, Alan, I don't like to bring up years past and everything, but this is also a Texas team that lost to Kansas at home last year when Sark was the head coach. Kansas on the road with a victory. I still think back to that game, and I cannot believe they lost to Kansas at home.
Okay, that really does. Bevo is taking you off his personal Christmas card list as well. That is it. You are, the burnt orange are just, they have had it with you, buddy. Okay, listen, we are moving on to the next game. Arkansas taking on South Carolina. Let's go into the SEC here. This game, I think it's going to be tough for South Carolina because, this game is starting at 11 o'clock Fayetteville time. Not an easy time to start anyway in front of 74,000 crazies in Fayetteville. I was very impressed I used Arkansas as a free pick on my video report last weekend. They took on a veteran Cincinnati team, beat them 31-24 at home, 224 yards rushing. And KJ Jefferson, a guy who continues to impress me, 18 for 26, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 18 carries, 262 yards rushing. And Raheem Sanders, 20 carries, 117 yards. This is a guy he's a big load to take down at 6'2", 227. Last year, he averaged 5.1 yards a carry. And a lot of the contrarians will say, oh, well, Cincinnati shot itself in the foot, 10 penalties. But listen, Arkansas still won the game. And Sam Pittman's Razorbacks are 7-1 straight up at home over the past couple of years. And I was not that impressed with the way South Carolina played. They beat Georgia State 35-14, but 2 of those touchdowns were from block punts. The defense couldn't stop the run last year, giving up 179 yards a game, and they allowed 200 to the Panthers. And Spencer Rattler, pedestrian numbers, 23 for 37, 226 yards, a couple of interceptions. This is not what they were looking for, the savior at the quarterback position.
Well, Al, I had higher hopes for South Carolina this year, I think. But I'm really curious to see what Rattler is going to do against that Arkansas defense, who did surrender 325 yards last week to Cincinnati, to the transfer quarterback Ben Bryant, who played for Eastern Michigan last year. But everything statistically in Vegas points toward Arkansas. South Carolina comes in 3-11 straight up and 5-9 against the spread on the road from 2019. Plus, they've lost 10 of their last 11, and they're just 3-8 against the spread in SEC road games. Like you said earlier, raucous crowd to go in. They're tough to play early afternoon in Arkansas. I'll lay, I believe, 8. Are we talking 8, 9?
Yeah, 8.5 right now.
I'll lay that and take Arkansas.
Yeah.
I'll take Arkansas because we just didn't see that much. We just didn't see that much from Rattler, and I kind of see what he wants to do because Beamer has that program on the rise. I just want to kind of see what he does against an Arkansas defense.
Yeah,
on the road.
There's always the fear of a letdown because Arkansas with the big opening win against Cincinnati, but I just don't see that happening here because I just discount the Gamecocks being that good.
Right, and it's the SEC opener for both teams. So, and I think that at home, Rattler, the crowd shouldn't affect him really. He's played in the Big 12 and has been all over as well. But I don't know what the rest of South Carolina is going to do. In Arkansas, and I'm on board with you. I'm a fan of KJ Jefferson as well.
Okay. Hey, listen, guys, before we get any further in the show, I just want to remind you, you can get my best bet every single day and Rick's best bet as well via the All Access Pass. In fact, you can get the 7-day free All Access Pass over at the Sports Advisors absolutely free. Now, that is a $449 value for free, no strings attached, no hassles, no salespersons. You just go over to the Sports Advisors, click on the button. You'll see it's $449, but you get it for free. And what that gets you is my best bet and the best bet of all 10-plus handicappers at the site every single day for 7 consecutive days for free. Why do we do it? Well, because we can, and because we're the only people in the industry that can do that. Because we've always felt that what better way to give you a taste of what we do than by pulling back the curtain, by showing you what we have. And that's what we do it for. So go over to the Sports Advisors, click on the 7-day free All Access Pass trial. And remember, there is nothing better. There is no 900 number. There is no 800 service. When you get Rick's best bet, when you get my best bet, when you get the best bets of all the handicappers at the site, there is no upsell. There is no 900 number, no 800 number. There is no better play than what you get. Everything there is what you see, is what you get, and you get it for free over at thesportsadvisors.com. Okay, continuing on here. Oh, boy, this is another good game. And, it's amazing how many of the good games on this Saturday's card, and there's not a lot of them, involve SEC teams. Tennessee at Pittsburgh. Huge revenge game for the Volunteers. Volunteers a 6.5-point favorite on the road against Pitt.
Let me just tell you, that crowd in Pittsburgh was so crazy on Thursday night for West Virginia, and I expect the same type of atmosphere when Tennessee comes to town this Saturday. And to be honest with you, Al, I was surprised when that line opened up at 5 and is now going up. I mean, I think I even saw 7 today. Vegas, Al, they don't lose. They're just saying take Pitt, take Pitt, take Pitt. I don't see it, though. I was, like I said, very surprised when I saw that line opened up Tennessee as a favorite a week or two back.
So you like, you like the Panthers?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, with everything I saw of Tennessee and that offense, Pittsburgh's defense, they were lucky to win that game Thursday night. The defense was very vulnerable against the run. They're aggressive, and Heupel's got that offense kicking in high gear. I mean, granted, they played a preseason game against Ball State, scoring 59 points. But that offense, with the addition of a couple wide receivers, they got this kid, Brew McCoy from USC, who just became eligible at 4 catches. They expect him to be bigger in the pass game on Saturday. The Pitt's run defense, weak. But Pitt's running game, 79 yards only rushing, and Tennessee is vulnerable on the back end of their defense, so that could be a sign for Slovis. I would expect Tennessee to win, and this game could go over, though. This could also be an over.
Yeah, 66 points. I mean, that's an easy number to eclipse for these two teams, considering neither one of them are strong defensively, and they both have the offensive firepower. Also, let me ask you this before I give you my thoughts on the game. Is this a prime letdown, even though it's a home game, because of the way the backyard brawl, the emphasis put on that game, the way it ended? Let's face it, we both had Pittsburgh 7.5. We both bought down the half point on the Panthers, and we were both extremely fortunate to walk away with the push because it was the ultimate miracle comeback for Pitt in that. Is this a game that you got to guard against a letdown if you're Pittsburgh?
Oh, definitely. Two opponents like this in a row for Pitt is tough. Granted, they're both at home. This will be Tennessee's game. They win this game. They just cracked the top 20, coming in at 24. Their first time in the top 25 since 2020. So this will put them in the top 20 with a win at Pittsburgh. Still, that line's just a little high for me, Lane. But Vegas is telling me, Vegas is saying everybody take Pitt, but. With that Tennessee offense, I think they'll have enough to cover at least 8 to 10.
I agree with you. I think it's a sucker play. It's a sucker play designed, that number, to suck you into taking the Panthers, and I think it's a trap line. I mean, Tennessee has had this game circled since they lost last year at home. It was 41-34. And remember, Hendon Hooker did not start that game last year for Tennessee. Joe Milton started that game last year. Hooker came in the second quarter, played well, but now with Hooker at quarterback, he is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in college football. I mean, the way granted, Ball State was, not even in Tennessee's class, but Hooker, 8 possessions, 6 touchdowns and a field goal on that 59-10 route before they called the dogs off. And oh, my gosh. I think Tennessee can just score at will. Yes, they don't have much of a defense, but as we saw, Pittsburgh doesn't have much of a defense either. So if I'm going to play this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Tennessee at 6.5. I'm going to go ahead and buy down the half point. I fully expect this line, though, actually will come down because I think, as you said, a lot of action is going to come in on Pitt, and it's going to bring this line down. We're recording this on Tuesday night. As we get closer to game time, I think the public money may bring this down to 6 because people, like you said, will jump on the Panthers, and that's going to be public pressure to pull this number down by a little bit. The next game, we debated whether or not to kick this game out of the games that we would actually talk about because I'm no fan of either one of these teams. But I said, hey, let's keep it in here because we've got to bore some people to tears. Iowa is -3.5 at home against Iowa State. Now, this has been a one-sided series with the Hawkeyes winning 6 straight and covering in 5 of 6. But Iowa, last week at home, almost pulled, well, I want to say a Washington, because I refer to Washington because last year Washington opened up at home and lost to Montana State. Well, Iowa almost did the same thing against South Dakota State last week at home. needing a bunch of, a field goal and 2 defensive scores to beat those Jackrabbits of South Dakota State 7-3. I thought it was the baseball score, actually, but it was a football score. Now, the Cyclones did their job, beat Southeast Missouri State. I'm going to throw this in your lap and see who you like in this game.
Al, that was just a pathetic performance by the Iowa offense. And, of course, we don't want to claim nepotism, but it could show since the offensive coordinator is Kirk Ferentz's son, Brian Ferentz. So we don't see any changes as far as the OC goes. But I will say this, Al, not a fan of Spencer Petras, the quarterback for Iowa. Not the last 2 years. 109 yards on Saturday against South Dakota State. Last year, only 1,880 yards last season. 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Like I said, never a fan of his. And here's a good one, Al. Iowa, 16 offensive possessions Saturday, and they had the average start 40, their own 42-yard line. I don't know how you only get 7 points, let alone a field goal and 2 safeties. Al, I'm not giving you a pick on this, but I'm going to give you a play on the total. And you know me, I'm usually not a total guy. 8 of the last 9 have gone under the total in this series. So my play on this is going to be the under, and it looks like right now the under's at about 40.5.
Yeah, my play on this is don't watch the game, don't go to the game. I mean, Iowa's got to be oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble for this. Iowa has got to be a pretty damn boring state if the whole focus of the damn state is going to be on this game. And
and it will be. It will be with that Cyhawk trophy on the line.
What trophy?
Cyhawk.
I know. I just wanted you to say it again. But you realize I've now lost all sponsorship money from the State Tourism Bureau of Iowa. They have never invited. I've only been to Iowa once. I remember I was driving cross country. I drove through Iowa. All I remember is so many damn cornfields. They are never letting me back in this state. I'm going to drive in that state. State troopers are going to be pulling me over immediately. Yeah. And I think corn oil. Isn't that the other thing? But anyway, listen, I was impressed with Iowa State's quarterback, though. I think it's Hunter Deckers. First start, 25 for 31, 293 yards, 4 touchdowns. The one thing I will say about Iowa State, isn't it about time that Matt Campbell, who every time a coaching vacancy opens up, Matt Campbell is the hot coaching prospect, but he always stays with Iowa State. Isn't it about time that Iowa State finally wins and Matt Campbell finally wins a damn game in this series? But, it just seems like Iowa always has his number.
Yeah, and the games are usually close. If I had to make a pick, I'm going to take Iowa State plus the 3.5, but I'm still leaning toward that under, unless Iowa just comes out with a whole new game plan Saturday to score points. But I just don't see it happening. They didn't prove it at all last year. I'm referring back to that game, which I remember after they beat Penn State, they went in and they played host to Purdue, got beat by Purdue, could not keep up with that Purdue offense. Not that I'm saying Iowa State's Purdue's offense of last year, but I just not a fan of Iowa, not a fan of Spencer Petras, the quarterback for Iowa.
I agree with you. I mean, I still don't understand why they keep giving him multiple shots as the starter. I always call a game that we preview the Who Cares Game of the Week. This is it. Everything tells me that, Iowa State should be the play here, and yet Iowa seemingly, again, 6 straight wins, 5-1 against the spread. Iowa seemingly always gets the job done in this rivalry series. So there you go. I want to play it. Back to the SEC. Let's talk about Florida. They cost us money against Utah. I have to say, I have to give the Gators props. I know Billy Napier is going to turn that program around. I did not think that he would turn them around that quickly against a damn good Utah squad. Listen, Utah lost that game in the swamp over the weekend, but Utah is still a darn good team. Anthony Richardson played very well. He was the Florida offense, 17 for 24, 168 yards passing, 106 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns in that 29-26 upset of Utah. I think this price, Rick, is extremely cheap. I love the Gators in this spot. Everybody's expecting so much from Kentucky, but Kentucky barely beat Miami of Ohio. You see the final score, 37-13, but it was a 13-10 game at halftime. And the Wildcats have a real problem. They can't run the ball.
Well, Al, you know why they can't run the ball. And before I get there, I like the quarterback Will Levis to transfer from Penn State. Had a great season last year, 2,826 yards, 24 touchdowns. But the key to that offense is Chris Rodriguez, and the coach Stoops has still not really come out why he is suspended. I mean, he did not play last week. This is a guy that rushed for almost 1,400 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. Did not play Saturday. I don't know if he's playing this Saturday or not, and that is going to be key because I'll tell you what, Anthony Richardson, like you said, was the best player on the field last Saturday night. And Napier coached his rear end off last week, and that program, he not a Florida guy, but he's going to turn that program around. I was thinking if they could get 2 of their first 3 or split, they win this one, they may challenge now for that second spot in the SEC East behind Georgia. But they were really, that was some game. And Cam Rising, that Utah played well. I mean, they they had the chance. They just didn't make the play at the end. It's plain and simple.
Well, listen, Rodriguez got into some legal issues back in May. May 8th, he was charged with DUI and careless driving. And although obviously Stoops and the university won't comment on it, I mean, you have to assume there's some illegal issues pending, whatever, disciplinary action, who knows. But there was no word when we recorded this here on Tuesday night. It seems that he's not going to be available. But you take a guy that ran for 1,379 yards and 12 touchdowns, you take him out of the lineup, and then you see against Miami of Ohio that Kentucky, 26 carries and 50 yards on the ground. Their longest run was 9 yards. Well, Utah ran against Florida. Kentucky's not going to run the ball against Florida. And that's why I think this is a dirt cheap price, because the Kentucky team you're going to see now is not the Kentucky team that played so well last year. And this Florida team, well, this is a Florida team that suddenly has been rejuvenated in the course of just less than 5 months since Napier arrived in Gainesville. And momentum is certainly on Florida's side. I will be real interested to see if this number stays at 4.5, because we aren't the only ones here that saw the difference between these two teams. At 4.5, hey, I can buy down the half point down to 4. If this game moves, though, to 5 is one of those numbers that's like out in the desert. 5 suddenly means, well, you got to win by a touchdown. And that puts a whole different spin on this game. But right now, I love Florida in this spot. Next game, very interesting game, BYU and Baylor. Now, BYU, playing in revenge at home, is a 3.5-point favorite against the Bears. I've gone back and forth in this game. I'm going to throw it in your lap, buddy, to let you pick it out first.
Al, I've not gone back and forth. I'm going to come right out and tell you BYU's my top play this week. I really like the Cougars at home, returning 11 starters on defense. Like you said, revenge last year when they lost that game at Waco. And I'm really like the quarterback, Jaron Hall. They come in 6 straight winners in their last regular season games. They lost the bowl game last year, and it showed what a difference. Jaron Hall was injured and did not play in that game. Was 261 yards on Saturday, 2 touchdowns, but last year 2,583 yards, 20 touchdowns. He is an exciting player. He is going to be better than Zach Wilson was. He's going to be the difference in that game, and you know what that crowd is going to be like in Provo. It's on that. I guess I would imagine, I haven't seen it, but I know it's on TV late. I think it's a late game. So Provo, Utah will just be exploding will be exploding Saturday night when 9th-ranked Baylor comes to town. Really like BYU and Sataki. Also big in revenge games. They are big in revenge games over the years.
Well, after BYU lost in Waco last year, Sataki said, he questioned his team's physicality, is the way he put it, because he felt Baylor just pushed BYU all around the field. Now, playing devil's advocate, Baylor beat up an FCS squad, Albany, 69-10. Oh, God, help me here, Rick. Baylor's quarterback, Blake.
Shiffin. Shippen.
Yeah, 214 yards, 17 for 22 touchdowns. He, of course, really came to prominence in the Big 12 title game last year against Oklahoma State. 23 for 28, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. He beat out Jerry Bohannon to become the starter in spring camp. And ironically, Bohannon then immediately transferred to South Florida, and that's who BYU beat 50-21 this past Saturday. And that wasn't even close to the final score. BYU was up 38-0 before you even blinked in that game. I will say this. It's kind of interesting. Not only is it a revenge game, but you also have BYU's eventually going to the Big 12. You've got Baylor as the Big 12 defending champs. And the reason I'm kind of on the fence here is that BYU's top two of their best receivers, one didn't play in the opener, and I have no idea at this point of whether he's going to play Gunnar Romney, and one of their other receivers suffered an ankle injury in the game. I don't know if he's going to be available, so does that hurt their passing game? And Baylor is just a team that is so damn physical. I just, they're not afraid of anybody. So I actually lean toward the points, but in one of these type of revenge games, we talked about it earlier with Tennessee and Pittsburgh, I actually lean toward Baylor, but not a game that I'm particularly enthused about. Which brings us to Oregon State and Fresno State. Not exactly a marquee game, but I'll tell you what, I think there's a lot of value in this particular spot. Oregon State is a 1-point favorite. Some places it's pick 'em. Oregon State's coming off a 34-17 home win over Boise. Held a veteran Broncos team, their offense, to just 116 yards and forced the Broncos into 4 turnovers in the first half. They were up 24-0 at intermission. Fresno State, meanwhile, Jeff Tedford back at the helm of the Bulldogs. They rolled over Cal Poly 35-7. Rick, in this spot, virtual pick'em game, I have a definitive side here. I'm kind of curious which way you're going to go.
Al, this is a tough one. I kind of like Oregon State. I watched them last week. For some reason, Boise State's quarterback, Brockelmeyer, came out of the game. They put another kid in the game that seemed to move, but Brockelmeyer was the kid. He was only 4 of 8, I believe, last week. Chance Nolan for Oregon State, their starting quarterback. An average to above average quarterback going on the road. This is a Fresno State team out with Jake Hefner, who pulled off that stunner last year at UCLA. They're also looking for revenge. I believe they lost by a touchdown last year up in Corvallis. I guess the slight lean at home toward Fresno State. They're at home in the games at a near pick 'em. I would lead toward the Bulldogs, and also you got Tefford back at the helm for Fresno State.
Yeah, I like Fresno State as well. Listen, Oregon State made me some money last year, but only when they played in Corvallis, because this is a team 5-16 straight up on the road under Jonathan Smith. And when you're on the road and it's a pick'em game, I'm sorry, I can't go with you. And I like Fresno State. This is a team that I think they're both evenly matched defensively, because Oregon State, I'm surprised that that Boise State did not put some points on the board against them. I don't know what happened there, other than the fact when you turn the ball over 4 times in the first half and you find yourself in the 24-0 hole, which Boise did last week, well, that takes your game plan totally away from you. I don't think it's going to be this way now. And Fresno, when you have a Pac-12 team coming to your house, this is like the Super Bowl early in the season. So that's why I like Fresno in this one. Before we get to our last game, just a reminder, again, you want to get my best bet, Rick's best bet, the best bets of all the handicappers, 10 or more of them, every single day for 7 straight days, no strings attached, a $449 value. All you've got to do is go to thesportsadvisors.com and click on the free 7-day all access pass. That's all it is. That's all you've got to do. And you get our plays for free. We do it because we're the only people in the industry to ever make that offer, because we pull the curtain back. We give you our plays, all the analysis for free. There is nothing better. There is nothing more. My best bet, well, that's it. There is nothing better than my best bet every single day. There is no 800 service. There is no 900 service for any of the handicappers at the site. And the only place our plays are available is thesportsadvisors.com. And all you've got to do is go visit the site, click on the free 7-day all-access pass. You'll see it. If you were to buy it, it's $449, but you get it for free. You sample our wares. We're that confident that we will make you money. Listen, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, no handicapper wins every single day. Anybody that tells you that, well, listen, that doesn't happen. But over the long haul, we will make money on a consistent basis, and that's all you can ask for. So check it out, the free 7-day all-access pass over at thesportsadvisors.com. Rick, last game is one of the best ones on the board as far as I'm concerned. Southern Cal at Stanford. The Trojans kind of made a nice little debut, living up to all the hype for Lincoln Riley last week at home against Rice. 66-14, and well, just about every single guy that came in through the transfer portal played kind of well.
Yeah, you expected that from Southern Cal, Al. Let's face it, it was Rice. 538 yards of offense they rolled up. I know you love this game. I'm not that much in love with it. I have a feeling of what way I'm going to go with this, but I know you really like this game. I'm a little concerned about SC's defense. We know about the offense. I know where I'm going, but I'll let you go ahead.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm shocked. Okay, I am stunned. Like I said at the outset of the show, we don't talk about these games in advance. I thought you'd be all over Southern Cal in this game. Wow, all these years I thought I knew you. Obviously,
As a matter of fact, Al, I like Stanford's quarterback. I like the kid Tanner McGee. And you know what? They have always given SC problems. 6-2 they are in the last 8 against the spread. They've won 5 of the last 8 against Southern Cal. Granted, this is a different Southern Cal coming into the farm, but it's about time David Shaw turns that Stanford program around after a couple of lean years. And what better way than to beat USC on national TV on Saturday night?
Well, yeah, but, people have been saying it's about time David Shaw turns that program around for how many years? How many years?
You got a point. You got a point. But he's got a quarterback this year. They had a kid that rushed for over 100 yards. And listen, we cannot – that means nothing when you're playing Colgate. I mean, Colgate is – they're a Patriot League team here in the East. So, every number they put up, they should have put up against Colgate. Yeah.
Yeah, and they turned the ball over four times in that 41-10 victory against Colgate. But you're right, Tanner McKee, 308 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and that kid that was running the ball actually was E.J. Smith, 118 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 168 yards total. And who is he the son of?
I should know this the way you're telling me, E.J. Smith. But there's a lot of Smiths out there, Al.
Emmett Smith.
Oh, really? Oh,
Emmett
good
Smith,
one.
yes.
Oh, that's what I would usually hit you with. That's a good one. Really?
Yeah, there you go. Emmett Smith.
Wow.
And you thought this show, guys, listening to this show was just about handicapping.
Wow,
yeah,
that's a good one. Well, it's tough to keep track of 131 teams, Al.
There you go. But anyway, listen, USC 66-14 over Rice. And Williams from Oklahoma, 19 for 22, 249 yards passing, 68 yards rushing. Led 6 straight scoring drives to open the game, which speaks not only well of the USC offense, but how pathetic the Rice defense was. Jordan Addison, the Pittsburgh transfer, 5 catches, 54 yards. USC 4 interceptions, 3 of them returned for touchdowns. I wonder how many games have there been with 3 pick sixes returned? I mean, that's got to be unusual. Hurry up. Somebody call the Elias Stat Bureau. Listen, Stanford won 42-28 in the Coliseum last year. USC 1-4 their last 5 trips to Palo Alto. But all that being said, if I'm betting this game, I'm taking USC -9 because I was kind of surprised at how cheap the price is. I guess because Stanford has dominated the series at home, and maybe there aren't that many believers yet in USC because, as you said, Rick, the defense isn't that good. But if I'm putting money on it, I'm taking USC in this spot. And in fact, this is kind of an interesting game. If I was to tease a game, I would look at Southern Cal in a 6 or a 7-point teaser and take the Trojans down in a 6-point teaser, make them a field goal, and a 7-point teaser, I take them down to 2 points and say, hey, just go ahead and win by 3. And what do you think of this teaser? This is something we didn't talk about. What do you think of taking Southern Cal and maybe, of all the games we talked about, because you know I love teasers, what would you think taking Southern Cal and maybe going and hooking them up with, there's one other game here I'm looking at. I just had it here. We just talked about, you got to love live videos like Arkansas. Taking Arkansas from that 8.5 down to either 2.5 or 1.5 at home against South Carolina. Because the way I'm looking at it, Arkansas is not going to lose that game. And in my book, Southern Cal is not going to lose at Stanford, although probably the way you're looking at it, you'd go, give me Stanford plus 15.5 or 16.5 points. What do you think of a teaser on that?
Well, you know how they say about teasers, and you know who used to love when we played teasers? Old Danny. He always loved when we played teasers because they were always a big winner for us. You know that.
What Rick is talking about with that. What Rick is talking about, guys, when we were at the wire service, when I was managing editor and Rick was the college or pro football editor, so we had our favorite bookmaker, and this was before it was easy to play, at sports books. We had our favorite bookmaker, Danny. We used to call 6:30 every single night, and Danny used to be a former high school principal who found it was much more lucrative to be a bookmaker. So every time we called Danny loved taking teasers from us, loved taking teasers. He'd just go ahead, and I think Danny used to take the teaser, and then he put a little L next to our names. Loser. But Danny was good because and trust me, guys, if you don't think writers and journalists don't bet, oh, you are sorely mistaken. Because Rick and I used to do collections every Monday or Tuesday. And there would be like 15 guys we'd be collecting money from among all the writers and go meet Danny at wherever to go do the pay-ups. And trust me, there was more money going out than there was money coming back in. Because at that point in our lives, we weren't full-time handicappers. But yes, Danny loved us. Anyway, I think that's a damn good teaser.
But no, getting back to your I could see your tease there with Southern Cal. I think they'll win the game. And you were saying about now we had talked about this game earlier. You had mentioned Arkansas. Well, I might put Southern Cal with Tennessee and tease that down because I like Tennessee to win. Like I said, just a little concerned with the point. With the points, if I play anything Saturday on that game, I'll probably play the money line with Tennessee. Knowing that's probably the way I'll go.
Yeah, and with teasers, I always like taking a team in a teaser that's generally a favorite, anywhere between 6 and 10 points, taking them down in that field goal range. And I've done extremely well with teasers in all seriousness over the years. One thing I do not advise about teasers, number one, playing more than a 2-team teaser. Playing exotic teasers, 3-team, 14 teasers, yeah, you can get those boatload of points, but the more teams you play in a teaser, the more the odds are stacked against you. The other thing I don't like about playing a teaser is Alabama, for example, 20 points. Well, listen, if you're not willing to play Alabama at 20, you shouldn't be playing Alabama at 14. Playing a huge double-digit chalk in a teaser, to me, that's lunacy. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if you're going to take him at 20, well, we're not going to take him. You can take him at 14, just and then you got to worry about the other team, what they're going to do. I just play Alabama straight. Even the money line's too high. I think I saw that, Al. I think it's like 1667 is the money line already. Yeah, so there's only one way when you're going to play that game, and you either take Alabama or don't play the game. Not even in a teaser. No. The only thing I'll say, Al, I mean, this day and age, Al, is so different from when we were involved. 30 years ago, possibly. I mean, there's just so many different ways you can go now with it. Like you said, you got exotic teasers, but you got exotic money line plays, Al, that you could play. You could take that big money line and group it with 7 or 8 plays and make yourself a couple of bucks, But it's just so different. You didn't have all that, 30 years ago when we were, in the 35 years ago, even when we were when we were involved with it.
And the final bit of advice when it comes to teasers, guys, I always say don't double dip. If you're going to play two teams in a teaser, don't play one of those teams straight up, because the worst thing you can possibly do is have that team lose, and then you lose straight up, and it affects your teaser as well. That just makes absolutely no sense to me from an investment, financial, or mathematical strategy. It's nonsensical. I see a lot of guys do that all the time. So that's my final advice on teasers. Well, listen, Rick, that'll do it for this week's show, and we will be back here each and every week to break down your Saturday games and hopefully talk about some more winners next week than we did for week number 1. That'll do it for Rick Torino and myself, Al DeMarco. Good luck, everybody, and we'll catch you again. And make sure, again, you check out that free 7-day all-access pass over at the Sports Advisors. Good luck, everybody.